YouTube, it's Erin, and I am the Handbag Housewife, and I'm back again with another video. Today's video, I have so much to unpack with you. I was just watching a fellow YouTuber, Somehow Adulting, do a video on her recent bad experience with Rebag. And I thought, oh man, I have been there, and I've been there many, many times. I myself have not had a bad experience with Rebag directly, but I have seen other people multiple times have bad experiences, and I've also been indirectly involved in one of those bad experiences. I've had bad experiences also with Poshmark, with Vestiaire Collective, and with Mercari. And all of these have been very stressful. And I feel like sometimes the company does a decent job and is able to help rectify the situation. And sometimes it's just not that helpful. eBay is another one that comes to mind. So I have something to say about every single one of those platforms I just mentioned. I was just about to say that the only place that I haven't had a bad experience is through Facebook groups, primarily through resellers on Facebook groups. But I'm wrong on that. I have had a bad experience and it just happened. So I don't know what I was thinking. So let's talk about all of this compiled into one, and hopefully you can avoid some of these pitfalls that I've run into along the way. The first one I want to talk about is Rebag. So last February, around Valentine's Day, I got a red Gucci bag from Rue La La, and I don't know if you're aware of this, but I was told by customer service with Rue La La that they get each of their items authenticated, and you can request an authenticity certificate to be emailed to you if you have any questions. And it's not done by batch, it's done by each individual item. So the question of whether or not this red Gucci bag wasn't really a question. It was authentic. And I sold this bag to a fellow YouTuber, and she decided she wanted to do a trade with Rebag, and she wanted to trade that red Gucci along with another item or two for something they had in their new arrivals or their VIP preview. So she submitted the trade, they accepted it, she mailed it in, and then they proceeded to tell her that if she wanted to keep going with the trade, she would have to pay money because they were not going to accept the red Gucci camera bag. And the only reason that she could get from them was that it didn't hold up to their brand standards. And so then what does that mean? And so then she thought that maybe it wasn't authentic. But upon further clarification, they said, no, it's authentic. There is just something, and that is a very elusive something, that's not up to brand standards. And so therefore we do not want to accept it. Now, is that a legitimate reason? I don't know. I mean, the bag went back to her, where I actually bought it back from her for the price that Rebag was going to give her for the trade. And so then I got it and proceeded to rehome it again to one of my good friends that I've met here through YouTube. But when they said it didn't meet up to brand standards, both this YouTuber and I examined it with like a fine-tooth comb. And I had 5 other Gucci bags in my collection at the time. And then I also have just added a 6th. And I can tell you, I know something about Gucci bags. I had 2 in my possession prior to that that had come and went. So I've seen a lot of Gucci bags. And the only thing that either one of us could find was that on the long zipper tassel that the stitching maybe wasn't quite perfect on one of those tassels. Otherwise, that red Gucci bag looked better than it might have tied as looking the best with 1 or 2 of the bags in my collection. It was that good. And so I kind of think that they just didn't want to take it because when they got it, they were like, oh, we have too many red bags. Red bags, if you didn't know it, they just do not sell that well on the resale market. So I kind of feel like that's maybe what happened, but who knows? But what they did do is they asked her to pay the difference if she wanted to keep going with the trade. And that's why I went ahead and paid her that difference so she could do that. And then she ended up canceling the transaction altogether out of frustration, much like my fellow YouTubers somehow adulting just did with the fiasco of her transaction. If I haven't said it already, I'll link Somehow Adulting's video down in the description box. You got to go check it out. It's very interesting. So that is a Rebag story. I haven't personally had a run-in with Rebag myself. I haven't sent them something and then had them send it back to me. But another one of my friends, the one who actually bought that red Gucci from me, she has had 2 instances where she sent a bag in that they said they were going to accept, and then they changed their mind on it. So she sent her bag in based on a quote they gave her. And when they received it, they said, we're not going to give you that much money. We're going to give you less. And she said, no thanks, send my bag back. Then she submitted the bag a second time. And the second time they offered to give her more money. So she thought, fantastic. So she sent it in once again, and they received it. And the second time they refused it because of some quality issue that was not an issue the first time around. So it seems like they are just picking and choosing when they want to accept an item and for what reason. And then most recently, this story is getting so convoluted, but most recently she sent a trade item in and they lost the item that she was trading for, and they wouldn't give her her bag back. I mean, first they said they couldn't find it. Finally, she just accepted that they would give her the trade value as a credit, which I think is their typical fallback, but she would have kind of liked to have her bag back, and that just wasn't an option. I know other YouTubers have been able to get their bags back in situations where part of the transaction fell through, but in this case, they just couldn't locate her bag. So how messed up is that? So that's what I have to say on Rebag. Now, let's move on to Poshmark. So recently, Poshmark authenticated a Fendi mini peekaboo that I bought, and it was in a beautiful creamy shade and had like whip stitch going down the sides. I can link the video down below if you haven't seen it. The gal I bought the bag from had great feedback on Poshmark, was very receptive to questions, provided me extra photographs, and she sent it to me. I received it, and as I do, I went ahead and got the item authenticated with Authenticate First, and it came back fake. So then I notified Poshmark that the bag was fake and had to wait a few days for the verdict, and they agreed to let me return it to the seller, which I did. And I communicated with the seller. I said, I paid to have this authenticated. It came back fake. I am happy to share with you the image from the authentication, which does show it's fake, as a tool that you might use to fight to get your money back from wherever you purchased it from. Well, it turns out she had purchased it from The RealReal. Now, The RealReal has its own batch of issues. I've heard so many stories about The RealReal. I've heard stories about The RealReal selling fakes. I've heard stories about The RealReal taking those fakes back in way of a return and then relisting them. I am not going to buy from The RealReal. What they did, though, for this gal is after quite some amount of time, because I just found out about this in the last couple days, is they took the bag back to re-authenticate it. And when they re-authenticated it, they said it was fake and that they were going to provide her with a site credit for the amount she had paid for that bag. I think she had had it for a year or maybe more than a year. And so I suppose site credit is a decent option, but really she should have gotten her money back, because technically they broke the law selling a fake counterfeit product. And it just doesn't seem right that she should be forced to buy something else from them when they've already broken the law with her. So, okay, that's The RealReal. Now, with regards to eBay, since they've implemented the eBay authenticity program, where a lot of their products are shipped through their authenticity center and examined and, authenticated there, I have not had any issue with eBay. And I've actually been pleasantly surprised, because they've caught a couple of condition issues and communicated those to me and let me decide whether I wanted to go ahead and go forward with the sale. The only issue I've had with eBay lately has been that I bought a Louis Vuitton, or it was supposed to be Louis Vuitton handbag strap from a seller who lived in Japan. And because that individual lived in Japan, I couldn't get the item authenticated. And not only that, but eBay does not authenticate straps. They authenticate bags. I don't think they authenticate wallets either, just FYI. But if you're looking for a bag and you can get them to authenticate it, I think it's a pretty safe bet. You only have 30 days for their authenticity guarantee. And when I found out that this strap that I got from the seller from Japan was fake, it had been more than 30 days. I had sent it off to Louis Vuitton for a repair, and they called me and they said, we cannot work on this product because it is not one of ours. And for me to get my money back, I filed a PayPal claim, and PayPal was then fighting for me. And I had to go ahead and get the item authenticated where they would say it was fake to get PayPal to side in my favor, even though I had an email or two. I had 2 emails from Louis Vuitton saying that this item cannot be repaired as it is not one of ours, but they didn't say what the item was, and then a follow-up email that said what the item was. So they weren't tied together, and I think that may be why I ended up having to get an authenticity certificate to provide to PayPal to get my money back. eBay won't cover the return shipping in that case either, and neither will PayPal. And I was lucky because the seller felt bad and they did provide that return certificate, that return postage. And so I was able to use that, and I did end up getting my money back in full. Now, I just mentioned condition and how the eBay authenticators will check for condition, and that the condition matches the description. It's not just authenticity. Well, Poshmark, on the other hand, they check for authenticity and sometimes don't do it very well, but they do not necessarily check the condition. And I have had an experience where I tried to buy a Coach leather sequins bag and it was described incorrectly. It came with lots of damage, and that was not part of the authentication process. However, they did let me return the item because it was not as described. I have had good experiences with Poshmark letting me return items when they are not as described. I have had good experiences with Poshmark letting me return items when they are not as described. And I know that that is not the case for everybody, because I've seen videos where someone got an item and it was not as described and Poshmark would not help them. But in my cases, they have. So we've talked about Rebag, we've talked about Poshmark, we have talked about eBay. Let's talk about Vestiaire Collective next. So I was an avid shopper with Vestiaire Collective for quite a while. I've had 2 bad experiences with them. One was I bought a Marc Jacobs Mini the Tote Bag in Orchid Haze, and they authenticated it, and then whenever it came to me, it was obvious that it was a fake. When I did compare it to the authentic Marc Jacobs the tote bags I had in my collection, so I proceeded to submit photos to them comparing what I knew was legit compared to their bag, as well as obvious differences between the two. They allowed me to send it back so they could re-inspect it, which took a while. And I have to say that is worrisome when you're waiting and it's stressful. And they determined that it was indeed fake and gave me my money back. The other situation has happened more recently, and it was when I bought a Fendi mini mama baguette, and that bag came and it was authentic, but again, just like Poshmark, they did not check the condition. Now, eBay is checking condition as part of the description, but Vestiaire Collective was not, and they've missed something previously as well. And so it's not just this instance. Previously, I was okay with it. This instance, I was not, because the buckle on this particular Fendi Mini Mama baguette was actually like completely gold less on parts of it, where it looked like they had taken like a jewelry buffer to it and removed all of the gold plating on the FF buckle right in the middle, front and center. So once I submitted those pictures to them, They allowed me to do a return and I got my money back. But again, all very stressful, not worth it. I am done with Vestiaire. They've had 2 strikes. They're out. They don't get 3 strikes. And with Poshmark, I just don't know if I'm totally done with them. I do have some really good experiences buying clothing from them and shoes. And so I don't know. I think I'm probably done, but you never know. The one good thing about Poshmark is that if you buy a handbag, at least you get a handbag, even if it may be fake and you have to deal with that then, or even if it may be not as described and you have to deal with that then, because they do accept anything over $500. They have it shipped to them, they check it, and then they ship it to you. So at least you're not going to get a box of rocks and then have to argue that you didn't get what you ordered. That gets really tricky, because how are you going to return a box of rocks if you bought a bag? Because then they're going to say, no, I sent a bag, and you're going to have to try to prove that no, they didn't. And that situation is something that could happen on Mercari. So Mercari is a selling platform much like Poshmark, where you can negotiate with sellers. They're individual sellers like eBay too. And on Mercari, I bought several little things and I bought a couple big things. And I could have been totally scammed on that platform, but I haven't been. I bought a Saint Laurent collage bag in the Rouge Legion color. I think it was my first collage bag that I bought, and it was a great experience. I also bought an Alma BB in Rose Ballerine from Mercari, which was 100% authentic, but shipped poorly. The seller put the handles down and stuffed it into a little box, and when I got it, it had U-shaped dents in the epi, and I know those won't come out, so I had to go through a return process, but that wasn't a hard thing to do, other than the seller was mad, but it was her fault because of the way she had shipped it. So, you know, at that point, it's like, you know, I don't want to pay that much for a bag that doesn't look like it did in the photographs, and I could document that. Mercari, they authenticate all through photos, so that happens before you ever ordered the bag if it's over a certain dollar amount. But again, they do not control what is actually shipped to you, as it never touches their fingers before it comes your way. So I really check that seller's feedback. I make sure they've got a good amount of stars. I look over anything negative that may have been happening to them. And I'm really leery to order from somebody who has no sales with a super recent account. So that's dangerous too. So for sure, Vestiaire Collective is out for me. And here's another one that's out for me, I think. YOOGI'S Closet. Gosh, there's so many. They just keep going and going. So I did my first purchase with YOOGI'S Closet this year. I bought a beautiful blue medium Valentino Rockstud spike bag. And when I got it, it wasn't the one that they had photographed. They had photographed one with the smooth leather and the leather lining on the interior. And when I opened my bag, while it was the correct color, the interior was suede and it was disgustingly dirty. And the exterior was a crackle leather. The plate where the turnlock runs through was incredibly scratched. Like, I don't even know how it was possible to scratch it as much as it was. And the bag had such a strong odor that my eyes were watering after only being exposed to it for a matter of seconds. I returned that bag before I ever left the parking lot of the UPS store because it was so awful. And it was not the bag that they had pictured. And whenever they looked for the bag that they had pictured, that those photos came from, nowhere to be found. And they gave me a 10% off coupon for the inconvenience off a future purchase, but honestly, I'm not sure I'll ever use it. I might give them one extra try if something amazing comes along, because I do know people who have had good experiences with YOOGI'S Closet, but my one and done, at least one and done so far, was not so good. The only website out of all of these I've been talking about I have yet to have a bad experience with is Fashionphile. Fashionphile has been killing it lately with their selection. I feel like their prices are good. I've mentioned this before. For some reason, I don't pay tax in my state, so that's great. It helps if Rebag's a little cheaper to make that gap in price just a little smaller. And I've found with Fashionphile, as long as I stick to only looking at the items with excellent condition and then just being super aware of each picture and asking for additional pictures from my concierge lady, whose name is Jane, that I have had excellent experiences. I mean, I think I've picked up 3 bags recently from there, and they've all been almost new. My most recent one was the Gucci Marmont box unboxing in the Wild Rose. All of these bags have been amazing. I've been so happy. And I guess the other 2 are my medium collage and the rose poudre, and my bicolor black pochette matisse. All 3 like brand new. I mean, the hardware is like brand new. Some of the stickers are still intact on, I think, all but one of them. So I could sing high praises for Fashionphile right now. I know there are others out there who may not sing those praises. I was not aware of one thing I wish I would have been just a little bit ago. I've submitted a couple items to them to sell, and I knew this in the past because I traded with them in the past, but it had been so long I'd forgotten. When you go in, you can actually accept a credit instead of cash. And if you accept a credit, then you get 10% more than you would if you were paying cash. And since when I'm selling bags, it's usually to buy a bag, I could have really taken advantage of that and gotten at least a couple $100 more than I have gotten in the trades I've sent in lately. And so I'm kicking myself for not realizing that, but I feel like the format of their website changed a little bit in the last few years, and maybe that's how I missed it. But now I know going forward, and honestly, with all the bad out there and hearing not just me, but somehow adulting as well as some others talking about how Fashionphile is really the only platform they feel comfortable buying and selling designer items, I am kind of leaning that way, especially for selling. I don't want to sell on eBay, but for buying, yes, I also still feel good about buying on eBay. So those are pretty much the 2 places that are my go-to places for pre-loved luxury goods. I have one other place to mention, and this is not one of the big guys like the ones I've been talking about so far, but this is Facebook resellers or resellers on Instagram. There are lots of rotten eggs, I'm sure, but there are definitely some good ones. Good ones that I know of are Djessa Lux. I've talked about her many times, as well as Love My LVOE. I feel really comfortable selling my items to Love My LVOE, and now they're known as True Luxury Official because their Instagram account got hacked. The lady's name who runs it, her name's Bella Feldbrandt. You can also messenger her on Facebook, and I've communicated with her a lot. I've sold mostly to her, but I've bought one thing from her, and it came incredibly packaged, like new, just like she said. Excellent experience. The selling experiences have been excellent too. Very worry-free. We have to kind of haggle a little bit to agree on the price, but she takes care of the stress of the selling for me. And when I'm selling high-ticket items, that's really nice. It's worth some money to not have to stress about shipping these expensive items, making sure everything goes okay, filing a claim if the shipping company messes things up, you know, all the things. She's taking that risk on, and it's worth being paid for, and it's worth me paying something so I don't have to do that. All of my Facebook reseller experiences have been good except for one, and that is Jazzy in Miami. And with Jazzy in Miami, she facilitated a purchase for me. Well, actually, I bought the item from her because she bought it with her credit card. It was bought through a Saks Fifth Avenue Gucci store in Florida, and I think it was Boca Raton, Florida. And then they sent it directly to my home, and I opened it and I was all excited. I was like, straight from the boutique, you know, that here's this Gucci bag that, you know, is so wonderful. And I looked at it, and then after the video, you know, I hadn't had my glasses on in the video. I looked at it closer, and the stitching on the inside of the flap there were tears all the way around the inside rim of the bag, not the flap itself, but the top rim of the bag. And it was the small convertible Gucci Marmont, just like I showed you in my last video, the pink one. This one was white. First, they said it's just the way they're made, but out of all 6 of the Gucci bags I have right now, not one of them has that. It looked like it was literally going to rip. Some of the tears were like this long because, and this is what I've been told by a seamstress, that perhaps the tension on the needle wasn't right, perhaps the needle wasn't sharp enough, but whatever it was damaged. And I fought for a few weeks, and finally they agreed to let me exchange it for a full price item in the store. And I got my green Gucci camera bag in that sort of minty sage green color. I love that bag, but I paid like $1,800 for that bag, plus the personal shopping fee of like $150 to Jazzy in Miami, because while she says her personal shopping fee is $50 and it's built into the price, she charges you a 10% tax rate, even if your tax rate's 4% like mine is. So she got about $150. So that bag cost me like almost $2,000, and the current retail's like $1,790, I think. It's really high. My other Gucci Marmont camera bags, I got all of them for like $1,200, $1,300. I have not paid that much money for any of those. I've only paid more than that for one of my Gucci bags, and that is the porcelain rose Marmont convertible one that has the flap and the convertible chain. I think that one I paid $19.50. So pretty much the same price as I paid for the camera bag, and the retail difference is like $700 or $800 between those two bags. So it was a ripoff, but it was a lesson learned, and at least at the end of it, I came out with a bag that I truly love. And so that was my bad experience with a reseller. And why was it bad? I mean, it was technically the Gucci boutique that sent me the item that was damaged or defective. And the issue I had is that this reseller, and her, again, it's Jazzy Miami is her business, she wouldn't help me at all. She wouldn't talk to Gucci for me. I mean, finally she said she did talk to them, but she said final sale. She said no returns, no exchanges, nothing. And I said, but look at this. Like, I didn't get to see this bag on the inside before you sent it to me. And I'm pretty sure the bag that they sent me a picture of wasn't even the bag that I actually got. But regardless, they didn't show me pictures of damage before they sent it to me. It was supposed to be a brand new boutique item, not an outlet item, not one that you need to accept small issues with. This was supposed to be brand new, pristine, and that's not what I got. And for this personal shopper just to say, you're out of luck, too bad, you know, that's what, all I do is facilitate the exchange. Well, that's all fine and well, but the receipt was in her name. So the power I had was limited because the receipt was not in my name and I didn't have a credit card to fall back on to defend me. So lesson learned, if I'm going to use a personal shopper that I don't know and trust, I'm going to go with one where I end up using my credit card and they proceed directly with the boutique. And there's one I know of that I kind of keep an eye on, and her name is Mod Gal. She's on Facebook. I believe she also goes by Designer Addicts. And that's one that I think would be worthwhile working with if at some point in the future I see something that she likes, because your receipt is going to be directly with the boutique that your item is coming from. And that, I mean, that gives you a little bit of peace of mind because you got your credit card company to back you up. You can work directly with the boutique because your name is on the receipt. So we've covered eBay, Poshmark, Mercari. We've covered Facebook. We've covered resellers. Gosh, we've covered a lot of stuff. Covered Rebag. We've covered Fashionphile. Whew, my voice is scratchy. But I have to say, I have gotten some amazing gems, some amazing deals shopping the resale market. But with all this said, I really think I'm just going to stick with eBay for now within the United States so that I can get it authenticated in-house by them, and then also with Fashionphile. So those are my two go-tos for now after all of these myriad of experiences. It's just not worth dealing with it. It's so stressful. It like consumes you while you're dealing with it, and I don't need that. So I hope this video has been helpful to you. If you liked it, please give me a big thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, what are you waiting for? Do it and ring the notification bell so that you are notified of future exciting content such as this. Also, go find me on Instagram. I'm almost to 1,000. If I get to 1,000, I think good things happen. I don't know what they are, but good things. You can DM me. It's the @ then the Handbag Housewife, all lowercase. You can also email me at thehandbaghousewife@gmail.com. If I don't hear from you, I will see you again real soon. Take care and have a fabulous day. Bye.